It looks like we are officially connected. Apologies that this was a little delayed. I was having some technical difficulties. Um, but I am so glad you are here for this next episode. It's the third episode of The Signal You're Missing. So let's dive in. You might have recently changed roles, maybe even companies, and yet you're still having the same conversations about your role, getting pulled into the same type of work, and still feeling the same frustration at the end of the day. Different environment, same experience. And at some point, you start wondering, why does this keep happening to me? And here's the part that most people don't say out loud. It's not just frustrating, it's confusing because you're doing all the right things. You're capable, you're experienced, you're not new to this. So why do you keep ending up in the same place? If you've experienced this, this is a signal. And if you stay with me for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you why this keeps happening and what you can do differently the next time you're in that situation. So when the same pattern keeps repeating, that's not random. It's a signal. Sometimes the environment is the problem. But when the pattern follows you across roles, across teams, or even to different companies, that's when it's worth looking at what's underneath it. If we haven't met yet, I'm Michelle Morgan. I spent over 20 years inside high pressure healthcare advertising agencies in New York City. I've seen this pattern from both sides in my own career and now working with high performing women I coach. Smart, capable, trusted, but they still end up in roles and situations that don't quite feel right. Not because they're doing something wrong, because there's a pattern they haven't interrupted yet. So let's talk about why this matters, because this isn't just annoying, it has real consequences. These are the patterns I see over and over again. You're seen as the reliable one, but not the one people promote. Or you step in and fix things, and now that just becomes something that's expected. Or you share an idea and it gets acknowledged, but nothing really moves forward. Or maybe you take on a new role that looks like a step up, but a few months in, you're thinking, why does this feel exactly the same? And here's where it gets expensive. You start questioning yourself. That's when self-doubt joins the party. You start wondering, is it me? Am I missing something? So you try to fix it externally. Get a new role, join a new team, try a different approach. However, the result doesn't change because the pattern came with you. So let's break down how this pattern actually works. I want you to think of it like being an autopilot. You've done something a certain way for so long, you don't even realize you're doing it in the moment. You have a default way of thinking. We all do. That shapes how you show up. And how you show up shapes how people respond to you. And that response reinforces the pattern. That's it. No magic, no mystery, just repetition. So let's make this a little bit more real. Let's say you walk into a new role and somewhere in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I need to prove myself first before I push too hard. So you would typically take on more work than necessary or jump in quickly to help in areas that is not necessary. Or you solve problems before they escalate. You don't push back early enough. And it's because you think you're being responsible, helpful, reliable. But when you follow that pattern, people start to see you as dependable, execution focused, the person who gets things done. So what do? They give you more of that, more execution, more fixing, more doing, and less of the things that matter most to you, like more strategy. You have less visibility, less influence. And then you think, man, it's happening again. I'm being overlooked. But that wasn't random. That pattern started in how you showed up on day one. Another one I see all the time is you walk into a meeting with a strong point of view, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I don't want to come off too strong. So you add in little things before you say anything, like just a thought, or this might be off, or I'm still thinking this through, but your idea is solid. But now you've just made it sound optional. And the room treats it that way. And you probably leave the meeting thinking, why didn't that land? Well, it did, just not the way you expected. And this is where most people get it wrong. They assume the environment is the issue, or the team, or the role. But when the same pattern shows up again and again in a different room with different people, that's not coincidence. Patterns don't follow you. You carry them. I'm going to say that again because it's really, really important. Patterns don't follow you. You carry them. And most of the time, you don't even realize it. I've lived this myself. There was a period in my corporate career where I kept thinking, this role just isn't working. They aren't seeing my full potential. So I'd move companies, and for a while it would feel better. And then the same frustration, same dynamic, same feeling of I'm doing everything right. So why does this feel like I'm not really growing? And what I didn't see at the time was that my role had expanded. The expectations were higher, but I was showing up the same way I always had. More helpful, more accommodating, more rolling up my sleeves and getting things done because that's what I'd always done and that had always worked for me until it didn't. So this is where the law of correspondence comes in. And let me be really clear here. This is not about blaming you for everything that happens. There are real external factors, layoffs, bad leadership, broken systems. Those are all very real. But when the same pattern keeps repeating across different environments, that's where this applies. And the law, simply put, is that what's happening internally has a direct relationship with what keeps happening externally. Not in a mystical way, in a behavioral way. So if that's true, changing the environment alone won't fix it. You have to change how you show up inside it. So if you're seeing the pattern, the question then becomes, what do you actually do with it? because understanding it isn't enough. You have to interpret it. And the good news is you don't need to overhaul everything. You just need to catch it earlier. And there's a simple way to start catching this pattern earlier. And I want you to think of it as path. Okay? So because if you're stuck in a pattern, you need a path out of it. Okay? And the first one is pattern. What keeps repeating? And I want you to get really specific here. What keeps repeating that you want to change? And the second is assumption. What are you telling yourself right before this pattern happens? And the third is tendency. What do you do because of that pattern? And the fourth is handle it differently. What's one thing you'll do differently next time? And so I know I went through that really quickly, but I did put together a one-page workshop or worksheet that walks you through this exercise. So if you'd like that and to do a little bit of work on your own in regards to this, just comment path on the post and I'll send it to you. Because, you don't break the pattern just by thinking differently. You break it by showing up differently, one moment at a time. So if you take anything away from this today, I want you to remember that the pattern isn't following you by accident. It's being reinforced, not because something's wrong with you, but because something in how you're showing up is consistent. And until you change how you show up inside the pattern doesn't change. So thank you so much for watching this episode. Each month I jump on here to walk through one of the 12 universal laws of the universe through the lens of business and career growth. I hope to see you next month. I'm going to be covering one of the most well-known laws, the law of attraction. See you soon.